So much for joining us here on PM News, sir.
Good afternoon.
Roland, look, firstly, let's start with the significance of this remarkable day that I'm sure not a lot of people even know about. What does it mean? What happens on this day?
Well, the Day of the African Child is actually to commemorate the establishment of the Charter of the Rights and the Welfare of African Children, which was done about 25 years ago. So we have the 25th commemoration. And it's actually to give children a set of rights and to acknowledge them as citizens who have rights in society, in their families, in their communities. And the Charter gives them those rights, writes them down. And this year's commemoration is really focusing on one specific issue in this Charter, and it's about ending child marriages. As you mentioned in your introduction already, the African Union has declared a campaign to actually stop this practice of marrying off young girls. And we from the civil society and in Plan International, we are accompanying these efforts with campaigns of our own and with concrete action on the ground at community level, at social level and at national level.
Roland, look, the issue of child brides leads to a magnitude number of problems. Take us through some of those so people can understand the severity of the situation, because they're always, in Africa, it's often frowned upon and people blame culture or tradition.
Well, there are three reasons we have explored so far, which we think are reasons for child marriages and early marriages. Number one is poverty. People give away their girls because then there's one mouth less to feed. Number two is, you mentioned it, cultural and traditional practices. And number three is lack of education. So we have also clear statistics which show that girls who have not gone to school are 3 times more likely to end up married early than girls who actually go to school. So the second thing we have to look at is clearly education for girls and enforce that. The first one, though, is actually make sure that legal systems are in place. And we know that the countries in southern Africa particularly have not harmonized their legal frameworks around this matter. And the campaign clearly is called 18+, and aims that all governments actually declare 18 as the minimum age for legal marriages. So we would expect the African Union Summit, which this year is also dedicated to the empowerment of women, to actually start with the girls and probably come up with some pronunciation about this right of girls to decide if to marry, who to marry, and when to marry.
But how would it be legislated then, Roland, especially when it comes to the traditional aspect, because that's the part that I think people just let sleeping dogs lie and not really confront the issue. Who's dealing with this issue?
That's a very good question. I mean, the legal framework is the starting point. Then it is about changing the mindsets of people who actually apply this practice. And there we are working closely with community leaders, with religious leaders, with traditional leaders. And just to give you an example from Zimbabwe, where we have been applying our campaign for the last 3 years, we are working with the traditional council of chiefs. So the chiefs who are known as the traditional leaders, and who are men, by the way, they have come up with a declaration to clearly say marrying off girls at a young age is not appropriate. And though it may have been for generations or thousands of years a practice, it is now not appropriate anymore for the 21st century.
We've seen children as young as 10 being married off in African countries, and they actually get sick just because their body is not even ready to be a wife at that stage, Roland.
We have about 7 million young girls here in the sub-region which are married at a young age. As you rightly say, their health is really at risk. Death in childbirth is actually the highest reason for death of adolescent girls. And they're exposed to all sorts of transmission of sexual diseases. They're exposed to violence. They're actually not in charge of their own lives. And I think that's the main reason why we say if we have rights for children, we have to make sure that they can make decisions about their own lives.
Roland, what is being done currently to address such challenges in Africa facing the African child?
There are, as I mentioned before, we have this 18+ campaign which works in 5 countries, Mozambique, Malawi, Tanzania,
what does it do?
Zimbabwe and Zambia.
What does the 18+ plan entail?
18+ works actually with governments to actually change the mindset and get the legal frameworks right. It works with traditional and local community leaders, and it works with girls themselves. Because we think knowing about their rights and having clarity that there is a right to say no is important. So we work with the young girls who are at risk. We work through peer groups, educating them. And we make sure that if there is risk at the communities where we are engaged with, these groups intervene, and report those cases to the local authorities.
How can people, ordinary people, get hold of your organization, Roland, to try and also, allude you to what problems they might be experiencing in their society, in their areas?
The best thing is through our webpage, planinternational.org, and there is a special section of our campaign, Because I'm a Girl, and there people can find information about child marriages and other issues of children's rights and girls' rights.
Roland, good best of luck with this great initiative. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
All right.